Joanna Fan versus Thug Rose Namajunas. So this is a very interesting fight, of course, because we all know how the first fight ended, and it ended with Joanna Fan getting knocked out. My biggest criticism is the immediate rematch. And I'll tell you why. You might be thinking, who the hell's this guy and why the hell does it even matter? We just want to watch the fight. And yes, it is the money fight era, and WME or IMG or whatever they're calling themselves now, they're in the business of just making money fights and trying to recoup all the money they bought the UFC for. Makes sense. But here's why I'm against immediate rematches. And this is just statistically speaking. When there's an immediate rematch, the results do not change. If you lost the first fight, and then there's an immediate rematch, you lose the second fight. For example, I'll go all the way back to Frankie Edgar versus BJ Penn, the first time. BJ Penn was this legend, future Hall of Famer, champion in 2 different weight divisions. And then Frankie Edgar beats him in a close decision. And rightfully so, BJ Penn, who's been a dominant champion throughout his UFC career, rightfully so, he gets an immediate rematch. Normally, these immediate rematches are given when there's a dominant champion. In this case, BJ Penn got an immediate rematch. No objection there. But here's where it gets interesting. So with this immediate rematch, Frankie Edgar wins again via unanimous decision, I believe. The result did not change. Frankie Edgar won the first one, immediate rematch, he won the second one. Okay, what does that mean? Not much. We move on. Then we have Frankie Edgar versus Maynard. Frankie Edgar and Maynard, they fight and it's a draw. So Frankie Edgar essentially, in essence, he defends his title, and Maynard fails to claim the belt. So there's an immediate rematch. Why? It was a draw. Rightfully so. They fight again, Frankie Edgar wins. So the result, in a way, did not change, because Frankie Edgar retained his title, and Maynard failed to get the title twice in a row, with immediate rematches. Then Frankie Edgar goes on and fights Benson Henderson. He loses via decision, and he loses his belt. Rightfully so, he's given an immediate rematch since all his other opponents were given immediate rematches. So he goes again, fights Benson Henderson in an immediate rematch, and he loses again. So this, you might be thinking, oh, this is just the Frankie Edgar effect, right? This is only happening to Frankie Edgar. But no. You go on, and you see Anderson Silva versus Weidman. Anderson Silva gets knocked out in the first fight. No one saw that coming. Not a single person could tell me they saw that coming. People went all the way out to say it was fake, it was staged, because no one could believe it. And yes, Anderson Silva was fooling around, he lost control, and he got knocked out. So there was an immediate rematch. Rightfully so, because he was such a dominant champion, and everyone was in such disbelief that Anderson Silva just got knocked out by this guy called Weidman, who was undefeated at the time. So there's an immediate rematch. What happens? Anderson Silva loses again and breaks his shin. Freak accident? Maybe. But it still proves my point. Immediate rematches do not work. Then we go to Woodley, when he fought Wanderlei Thompson. First fight was a draw. Again, like the Maynard and Edgar fight, it was a draw, which means the contender failed to get the title, which means the champion was successful in defending the title. So there's an immediate rematch. And the result did not change because Woodley won that rematch and retained his title. What I am saying, all I'm trying to say here is, statistically speaking, immediate rematches do not generate different results. When there's an immediate rematch, whatever happened in the first fight tends to happen in the second fight. Just based on the statistics that I quoted. These are a lot of statistics, by the way. From Frankie Edgar to Anderson Silva to Woodley, and all dominant champions. This is not a rule, or this is not the law. I'm just saying, here's what I've observed. And this is why I don't like immediate rematches. However, rematches in general, when there is at least a fight in between, or a few fights in between, or many years in between, where there's enough time for someone to go fight again, fight someone else, get back on a winning streak, get a confidence booster, get a change of opponent, change of flavor, if you will. When that happens, and then there's a rematch, those tend to generate different results. Those yield different results. For example, Rampage Jackson versus Wanderlei Silva. I believe Wanderlei Silva beat him twice in Pride. He knocked out Rampage twice, and then the UFC, many years later, there's a rematch again. Rampage Jackson beats Wanderlei Silva. Maynard beat Frankie Edgar early in his career. He was the only person who beat Frankie Edgar at that time. Many fights in between, and then they get a rematch. It's a draw, and then a rematch again, and Frankie wins. But in between those first two fights, you can see there was a change, and eventually Frankie won. So there's a lot in between. And then the immediate rematch did not work in Maynard's favor, which again works to prove my point. And there are many examples of when rematches are successful. There are many rematches who are not successful. But all I'm trying to say, at the end of the day, is statistically speaking, immediate rematches do not yield different results. Thug Rose Namajunas knocked out Joanna Jędrzejczyk, and she took her title. Chances are, based on the statistics that I just quoted, based on all of this data, statistically speaking, I think Thug Rose will do it again.